almost everyone gets Ireland wrong in the same way. They try to see all of it and end up feeling almost none of it. This trip only works if the stops are right, in the right order, and the last two alone are worth the click.
Dublin is the natural beginning, but it is also the first filter. If you stop at the most photographed version of the city, Ireland can feel simpler than it really is. Dublin is useful because it resets your eye before the road trip even starts. Historic pubs, Georgian houses, the Liffey, elegant parks, streets where literature still feels present rather than packaged for visitors. Temple Bar deserves a look, yes, but not all your time. The better version of Dublin appears when you stop chasing the famous name and start walking properly, slowly, between Merrion Square, St. Stephen's Green, and the quieter stretches where the city lowers its voice and becomes more convincing. First mistake to avoid: treating it as a technical arrival base. Give it only half a day and it gives you far less than it should.
That is exactly the kind of trip I want here. Fewer random stops, more order, more selection, more reward. If that is also how you like to travel, subscribing now makes more sense than waiting until the end.
Just outside the capital, the scenery changes without warning. Wicklow and Glendalough are the right transition, not simply the nearest one. The mountains here do not need altitude to impose themselves. They win through atmosphere. Tightening roads, dark lakes, silent valleys, restless light. Then comes Glendalough, where the monastic site does not look placed into the landscape, it looks born with it. Timing matters here more than the plan. Arrive early or late in the day and the place changes completely. In the middle hours it loses part of its gravity, mostly because too many visitors break the exact stillness that makes it memorable. Ireland starts saying something important here. The value is not only in the place, but in the way you arrive at it. Then the route drops toward Cork, and that is a smart move. After the compact nature of Wicklow, the journey needs a city that breaks the rhythm without copying Dublin. Cork is less immediate, less polished on first impact, but more interesting once you stay with it. The bridges, the irregular streets, the covered market, the local pulse. Everything here tells you that you are entering an Ireland that feels less narrated and more lived. It does not hit you with a perfect postcard. It hooks you gradually. And that is exactly why it works. Clear line. Dublin is easy to visit well. Cork is easy to understand well. Those are not the same thing. If you do not want the trip to feel like a row of places doing the same job, this stop matters. A short distance away changes the tone again. Yes, the visual payoff is instant. The coloured houses rising toward the cathedral are almost offensively photogenic. But stopping there would be the wrong read. 𝗍𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗍𝗀 natters because beneath that orderly facade sits a town of departures, farewells, emigration, the Titanic, and a harbour that feels like a border between one life and another. It works much better if you take it slowly, from the waterfront upward, letting the slope itself build the story. It is a short stop, but not a minor one. More importantly, it does something specific in the route. It reminds you that in Ireland, even the most beautiful places often carry a harder undertone than they first reveal. From here, the journey finally opens its lungs. Killarney National Park is the point where the landscape stops being merely promising and starts delivering. Lakes, woods, trails, reflections, castles, old estates. Yes, everything people imagine is here. But the key is not to list it. The key is to choose your angle. Try to do everything and you flatten the stop. Decide whether to read it more as a scenic place or a historical one, and Killarney gives twice as much back. Muckross House and Ross Castle belong here not as extra stops, but as two different ways of understanding the same landscape. This is one of those truths that changes an Ireland trip. The winner is not the traveller who compresses more, it is the one who edits better. Killarney is the perfect place to learn that. Then comes one of the names everyone expects, the Ring of Kerry. And that is exactly why many people switch their brains off and hand themselves over to the cliché. That would be a waste. The ring does not matter because you are supposed to do it. It matters if you do it well. The difference comes from the stops, the small detours, the time of day, the light, the margin you allow yourself. Tackle it in the worst hours in compulsory loop mode, and all you may remember are curves and traffic. Give it space, and something else happens. The sea opens at the right moments. The mountains shift with every new perspective. Villages enter the view without breaking it. The road is not famous on its own. What made it famous is the way it forces you to slow down. And if you do not slow down, you miss the exact reason to be there. The best part is that just when you think the southwest has already played its strongest hand, Dingle shows up and changes the rules again. Everything narrows a little here. The road, the margin, the relationship between you and the landscape. It is less ceremonial than Kerry, and because of that, it often lasts longer in memory. The wind feels sharper, the Atlantic feels closer. Historical traces appear without needing to introduce themselves, and the territory keeps just enough roughness to stop the trip from becoming too polished. If Kerry is the great classic, Dingle is the piece that sticks to you, worth remembering. Some places are simply beautiful. Others change your measure of the journey. Dingle belongs to the second kind. Halfway through, this is the right moment to ask what kind of Ireland you're actually looking for. The urban one, the panoramic one, the harder-edged one, or the one that feels almost outside time. Tell me in the comments, because from here onward, the scale of the trip changes again. The cliffs of Moher are exactly the kind of stop everyone knows before arriving, which is why they need to be handled more intelligently than usual. Yes, they are iconic. Yes, they deserve the fame, but they do not forgive bad timing. In flat light, full crowds and difficult wind, they can remain just a place you saw. With the right weather window, they become physical. This is not a place to rush, take the photo and leave. It is a place to let the landscape enter properly. The Atlantic does not perform here, it presses. That is the difference. Catch the right window and you understand in seconds why the cliffs stayed so large in the imagination of anyone who has ever thought about Ireland. After a place that exposed, Connemara is smart enough not to compete on the same terms. It does the opposite and wins because of it. No single gesture. No one flag-planting viewpoint. Here the landscape works through accumulation. Bogland, lakes, shifting light, long roads, stone walls, scattered villages, and a sense of space that does not insist but stays. It asks for more attention and rewards you for longer. Some of the best moments do not happen when you get out of the car, but while you are still driving. Here is the counterintuitive detail. Try to consume Connemara like a checklist, and it may feel weaker than it is. Live it as a stretch of journey, and it becomes one of the hardest sections to forget. This is where Ireland shows its subtler side. The best place is not always the one that speaks the loudest. Then the right leans into the finish, and it needs to do that cleanly. The final stretch cannot drift. The Giant's Causeway does not close the trip only because it is famous. It closes it because it changes the grammar of the landscape completely. After green, water, roads, and softer relief, here you are looking at something cut, geometric, almost unreasonable. The basalt columns work for people who love geology, but also for anyone who knows nothing and simply wants to see a place that does not resemble the rest of the trip. More than that, it has a major structural advantage. It does not feel like a repeated finale of things you already saw. It feels like the right last card. Not necessarily bigger, sharper, yes. In the end, the 10 stops have to stay these 10. Dublin, Wicklow and Glendalough, Cork, Cobh, Killarney National Park, Ring of Kerry, Dingle Peninsula, Cliffs of Moher, Connemara, Giant's Causeway. 10 real moments, not a stretched out list. Put together properly, Ireland stops feeling like a collage of pretty places and starts behaving like a trip that genuinely grows.
If this itinerary helped, leave a like and tell me which of these 10 stops would be your number 1. In Ireland, the real mistake is not seeing too little, it is seeing badly.